Hey guys, Bored now, back with you with another review of His Dark Materials, and this is going to be episode 3, and it's called Spies. And so we're starting to get into the thick of things now with the plot picking up pace, and I quite like this one. It's obviously, as you'll know from my other two, I've been a bit mixed on it so far. I'd probably say it's sort of watchable and certainly has sparks of life, and I can't say too much bad about it, but yeah, there's still some issues. I still find it hit and miss at times. I think I'd say this one is maybe the second best of the three we've had, so it's sort of in the middle in terms of quality for me, with the first episode definitely being the weakest, and last week's I actually really liked, even though I suppose not a lot happened with the plot last week. I just really liked the scenes between Miss Coulter and Lila. Those sort of the tension between those two and the standoff and just their characters and the interactions I thought worked really well. And we got to know the world of the show a bit more, the series, and it was just darker, really darker, had a bit more life to it than the first episode. But yeah, this episode I quite enjoyed as well for the most part. It still has some moments that quite bored me. You still have these kind of, grand speeches which don't really sit with me. You still have, like quite po-faced sort of men standing around delivering these self-important speeches, and you still get some quite whiny little monologues and just quirky little things that kind of put me off. It kind of just the side of fantasy and magic stories that don't really appeal. So you still have those moments, but overall I thought it was a solid enough episode. Before I go any further, I should deal with the cliffhanger from last week, because of course last week Lila finally escaped from Mrs. Coulter, and then she was snatched, and that's how the episode ended, the previous episode. And it turned out to be a bit of a fake sort of cliffhanger, because it was like Tony who snatched her, Tony and one of the other boys. So the Anne-Marie Duff character, Ma Costa, her son, and one of his friends, it was them who grabbed Lila. So, I thought that was a bit cheap just because it ended on a cliffhanger. And I know that's the point. They wanted you to think it was something sort of sinister and like an enemy. But even so, it's sort of, why would they just snatch her like that if they were on her side, sort of thing. It's not like she was like frantically running away. She was just walking through the streets. It seems a bit over the top just to like resort to that. But anyway, whatever. They wanted it to be like a cliffhanger, so it was. So they take her obviously to the barge boat, where obviously this group of people, including the James Cosmos character and the Anne-Marie Duff character, they're on their way to try and get to the grabbers, to try and save the children, to try and obviously revive the children who have already been killed. And I think that's one positive from the episode, is the fact we do get more Anne-Marie Duff. She's been in and out of it so far, so we get more of her character, which is great because she's such a good actress. She's very consistent, and she always brings a lot of passion, a lot of energy to her roles, and she has been one of the standouts. But this is her episode in a way to shine a bit more, because she's only been on the fringes in the previous episode, and we get some good scenes with her and Lila. There's a sort of a good energy to the Anne-Marie Duff, like her enthusiasm and her kind of wisdom and passion as well. It's a really, I think she brings a lot to the character. Whether there's a lot to the character without such a good actress, I'm not too sure, but she certainly brings a lot to it and carries it very well. And again, good chemistry between her and Lila. I also like the touch of the fact that Lila doesn't trust adults really, because of her experiences so far in life, as an orphan, and then, you know, the murky stuff going on at the boarding school. Well, the college, I should say, not really a boarding school. And then what happened with Miss Coulter. So it makes sense, and Lila wouldn't trust adults and that. So I did like that side, the fact that she was snatched, to be fair, so you can understand how she might get off to the wrong foot with them. And again, she's very anxious to escape. And the key plot detail we find out here, which Ma Costa tells Lyra, is that she's because they have this thing, and Lyra gets sort of quite whiny, which I like the actress, but sometimes she's a bit too whiny for my liking. But they have this standoff, and it's quite well done, and Lyra's getting fed up of adults, you know, kind of like trying to shelter her or not telling her the full truth. And that's when it comes out. Ma Costa tells her that she's Miss Coulter is her mum, her real mum, and that she went through an abusive relationship, and that the McElroy professor character saved her and saved Lila at a young age, and sort of then. Yeah, that's kind of why Miss Coulter is so sort of messed up, so sort of like sinister and cynical about the world, is because of her experiences as a young mum. So that comes out. I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about that reveal. It feels a little bit soap opera-y, and it feels a bit like, well, we just have to connect these things to make it. I mean, maybe as things go along and that opens up and we see more of like that relationship, maybe those characters, well, the Miss Coulter character, maybe, you know, it'll connect more, and it'll work a bit better for me. At the moment, it just feels like one of those kind of things that they do just for the sake of it, just to connect things up, and without really having much sort of meaning behind it, or much, you know, it doesn't necessarily feel like that interesting as a bit of storytelling. It works in the moment because, again, the drama works quite well and the actors, and so it's sort of how I felt about last week's reveal with him being her father. The actual reveal, just on its own, I didn't really care that much for, but I think it's just because it was sold really well in the scene, and I guess that's always going to be the crucial thing. So there's some really good stuff with Lila and with Ma Costa, and eventually she sort of won over, and they are doing the right things, and we see them actually down below on the barge, then they are questioning someone who they captured who was involved in Lila's in the kidnapping of Roger and the other kids, So they're trying to force the truth out of him, and that sort of convinces Lila, I think, that they are on her side. And so we sort of see them at this sort of gathering type thing when they're, sense of community, like this sort of almost meeting really between a community where they're trying to fire them up and trying to say, we need to go and find the gobblers and we need to get our children back. And one of them is sort of on the fence because he sort of says, I'm sorry about what happened to your children, but this is too risky for the rest of us. But by the end of the scene, he's sort of been convinced, and it's this big rallying cry, these chants, and a real coming together. So it works fairly well in the scene. The Spies of the title, which I quite like. I mean, some of the stuff with the animals or some of the little gimmicks I'm not always that keen on, but the Spies of the title are like these sort of insects, these flying like insects which Miss Coulter sends off, and when she first lets them go, we weren't quite sure, or I wasn't quite sure what they were for, what she was trying to achieve with them. But it's quite a nice reveal, but it's a little contrived because what happened is Lila gets like the golden compass to work. And actually, sorry, I should do that scene first, because in the middle of the night, Tony and Benjamin, who's the son of one of the other sort of main like characters on the boat, going to find the gobblers. His son Benjamin and Tony decide they're going to take matters into their own hands and go to Mrs. Coulter's place to try and find answers. And so they break in the middle of the night, and we see them. They sort of find the plans which, Lila was looking at last week. And then her demon catches them in the act, and it becomes a big thing, and that alerts Mrs. Coulter, who then comes in actually with a gun and starts shooting at them, starts threatening them, and Tony sort of escapes out the window, and we see the two demons sort of fighting, and again it's quite an intense scene, but yeah, she basically captures the other boy, Benjamin his name is, and again, great acting from Ruth Wilson in this scene. She's really imposing and intimidating and very sort of sly, and she tries to get him to tell who sent him. Even though no one sent him really, the two boys decided to go on their own, but she doesn't know that, so tries to get answers out of him, and he ends up sacrificing himself, rather than give up his family and reveal the truth, who his father is. He jumps out a window, he sacrifices himself, which obviously Tony sees, and Tony escapes. And that leads on to the scene with Lila and the golden compass, where she finally gets it to work, and she, starts putting in these details and touches certain parts of it, and it's revealed to her through that sort of formula that Benjamin has been killed. So that's what she's going to tell the James Cosmos character, but then that's when the spies come in, and this is all, the timing is a bit convenient because the spies fly in and start circling and attacking them, just as she's about to tell him then Benjamin is dead. So that's all a bit convenient, but they fight them off, and they sort of, she tells them, and they sort of realise. And obviously for the father, it's the dramatic moment, because he realises he's lost his son, but they're still defiant and kind of very much in the mind of, well, we can get him back. You know, if we get to the gobblers and solve this, we can get our children back. So although he's obviously very down, he's still very sort of defiant. But anyway, the spies were quite neat, I thought, in a way. And Lila, it was quite a big moment, her figuring out the thing. Although the plotting is a little bit, but whatever, it's fantasy. But so that's episode 3, Spies. Pretty solid episode, and it's again moving forward more with them determined to get to the gobblers, determined to get to the truth. So that's episode 3 of His Dark Materials, the first season or series of the HBO BBC version. I'll be back with a review of episode 4 next week. More TV and more film reviews to come up on the channel soon. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.